one of these, and we have an opportunity to influence system change efforts at the county level for something really, really important and increasingly important during these COVID times. Thank you for joining us. Welcome to the third day. As you've heard, the focus of this year's symposium is our county's commitment to early care and education, unlocking resources and finding pathways forward. To get us started, I'd like to introduce Kathy Stevens, Executive Director of McHale, the Montgomery County Coalition for Adult English Literacy, and one of the co-chairs of Montgomery Moving Forward, and also Tiffany Jones, President of the Community Action Board. And between them, they have a special announcement which will make us all happy to get us started.
Andy, thanks so much. And thank you everyone for being with us. I'm really the lucky one to get to announce an exciting new opportunity for Montgomery County today that emerged over the last week. And I'm not gonna steal the thunder. Tiffany with the Community Action Board is gonna let us know what this is.
Hi, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that the Community Action Board has, that's the grantee for the Head Start program, has unanimously voted to allocate $100,000 to support a pilot of the Basics program in the county. And the pilot is going to start off with a focus on Head Start families in our county. So excited to share.
Oh, Tiffany, thank you so much. It's really exciting. And this is great news. Over the last year, MMF has really been at the forefront of advocating for the Basics program and to get it to Montgomery County. Just a quick word, because so everybody's not scratching their heads. The Basics is a research-based community level initiative that really prepares young children for kindergarten. It rests on 5 pillars, my favorite of which is more love, manage stress. And I think we could all use that right now. We'll hear more about this later on in the program. But first I wanna thank Tiffany Jones, who you just heard from, Charlene Muhammad, who's the Head Start Program Manager for the county here in Montgomery County, and Zelda Wafer Alanji, who's the Chair of the Head Start Policy Council, and Verna Washington, who's a supervisor. She's got the longest title ever, Division of Title I and Early Childhood Programs and Services in the Office of Curriculum Instructional Programs, Montgomery County Public Schools. So thank you to all of them, because this obviously has really been a team effort. They had great foresight and leadership to make this opportunity possible. And it's a great opportunity for Montgomery County. As I said, you're going to hear about it more a little later on. But MMF is posing a challenge to our partners who are in the private sector, nonprofit sector, philanthropic sectors today. Add to this public investment. This is your opportunity to add to this already generous $100,000 so that we're able to sustain this effort past just the pilot program. If you're interested in learning more, stay in the Zoom just after 2:30 for the post-webinar conversation with Dr. Ferguson, who's responsible for the Basics program in Boston. And please also check out, I think we're going to put in the chat, there's a symposium pledge card that is linked in the chat, and we'll probably pop it up on the screen. And it's an opportunity for you to actually put pen to paper, pledge your support to join the Basics Advisory Group, and that would inform bringing the Basics to Montgomery County, and do consider your own investment in this. Andy, we're back to you already.
Okay, Kathy, and congratulations. And thank you, Tiffany. So this is the part where I make a small speech. It'll be 2 or 3 minutes, but it's to give a little context for today's program, because presumably many of you listening today weren't there for session 1 or 2. So let me give you a little context. We began on November 5th by underscoring why investment in early care and education is our collective responsibility now more than ever due to the pandemic. During the first day of the symposium on the 5th, we heard from the founder of the Basics about the case for investing in early care and education starting from birth. Dr. Ferguson reminded us that while the science is not new, it remains relevant more than ever today, as a lack of investment in early care and education from birth through 5 results in wide and sustained academic, social, emotional, and economic achievement gaps for children throughout their lives. As we learned last week, community interventions like the Basics rely on partners at every level who understand that investing in early care and education is an investment in human capital later on in life. Last week, we took a close look at some of the essential building blocks that are currently in place to advance early care and education systems change in the county. Specifically, we focused on the role of partnerships across sectors, especially those made stronger due to the pandemic, in advancing system change in the county. So today, on the third and final day of the symposium, our goal is to hone in on a few of the innovative strategies to advance existing efforts in Montgomery County. This event is made possible by the generous support and enduring commitment of our sponsors and supporters. In no particular order, they are Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services, you see them on the screen, Kaiser Permanente, Montgomery County Public Schools, Asbury, Montgomery College, Early Care and Education Funders Collaborative, Community Action Agency, Per Conti, Montgomery County Economic Development Corporation, the universities at Shady Grove, Comcast, the Greater Washington Community Foundation, Bob and Linda Young-and-Taub, David Andritas from UBS, and the Healthcare Initiative Foundation. The needs of families with children, particularly young children, have been made even more critical as a result of COVID-19. The pandemic has made it even clearer that early care and education is an equity, class, and social justice issue. It's an economic issue. It's an issue that touches every sector. It's an issue that belongs to each of us. We could each go on for an hour about why this is important in our own lives. MMF's work on early care and education began 4 years ago as a workforce development issue. And if you'd like to learn more about MMF and its collective impact work, check out the MMF webpage. MMF's call to action aims to create a coordinated, comprehensive early care and education system that will support two important goals: attracting and retaining a talented workforce of today by supporting families with young children, and ensuring the skilled workforce of tomorrow by addressing the growing opportunity gap. As you engage with us today, we hope you'll leave with an increased understanding of some of the current and cutting edge work that is happening in the county with a goal of advancing early care and education. For example, we hope you'll have a greater appreciation of what it takes to successfully implement the basics and reach the most vulnerable families and children with this cross-sector community intervention. After hearing about MMF's efforts to promote the creation of a public-private coordinating entity for early care and education, we hope you'll better understand not only how this would improve what currently exists, but also how it might allow Montgomery County to serve as a statewide model. I only have seconds to go, and then we're going to pass it on, and you'll hear from differently or more interesting people, but I thought I'd say this. We ask that you join us in advancing either or both of these efforts by pledging your support. Click on the link you'll see in the chat and/or by visiting the symposium landing page to learn more, show your support, and get in touch with MMF. It's now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Darian Pollard, who will inspire us so that together we can move early care and education systems forward in Montgomery County. According to Washingtonian Magazine, Dr. Pollard is one of Washington's 100 most powerful women, but all of us in Montgomery County are most familiar with her role as president of Montgomery College. Among her many achievements, Dr. Pollard partnered actively with Montgomery County Public Schools and the universities at Shady Grove in the creation of the Achieving Collegiate Excellence and Success, ACES program, a support program designed to help disadvantaged students transition from high school to college completion. Dr. Pollard has been an outspoken advocate for equity and educational access for all children, starting from birth, and her presence today is another reminder of the close ties between early care and education and workforce readiness. We are lucky to have you with us today, Dr. Pollard, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you so much, Andy. I really appreciate that introduction. And let me start off by saying congratulations to MMF for the work that they have done. My title, or what I was asked to do here today, was to piece together a puzzle. And I might like to suggest to you that I'm going to try to ignite you around these issues that we need to talk about. And I've been following the ECE Symposium closely, and I've been very inspired by the energy and the intellect that so many of you are carrying into this work. These are not easy times for any of us. We're facing challenges we never imagined before March, and yet we are still forging ahead. Now, a fellow Chicagoan of mine, Rahm Emanuel, likes to say, don't ever let a crisis go to waste. It's an opportunity to do important things that you thought you couldn't do. I think this speaks directly to the early childhood education issues. We have neglected a comprehensive approach to early childhood care and education for far too long. It's a moral imperative and it's a business imperative. For those who didn't see it before COVID, there is no denying this situation right now. Where we previously talked about attracting and retaining talented workforces, now we're trying to talk about and we're struggling to keep our existing workforce functioning safely at full capacity. And this has not been an easy challenge. Health and safety must be paramount. But it is clearer now more than ever that those in our workforce with young children at home must have support. This is the reality that so many of our partners recognized long before the pandemic, and now it is critical. Early childhood educators have themselves become frontline workers. Educators must have the skills and training needed to teach these students, many of whom live in vulnerable households. This is a health challenge, but it is also an economic one. We must provide the ECE that is needed to keep our economy robust. We must ensure that young children are learning what they need to learn so that they're ready for school and can achieve when they get there. High quality, affordable ECE is a must to continue to provide local employers with skilled workers, even in a pandemic economy. So I'm calling this a pandemic economy because it's unlike anything that we've ever seen before. And I use this term a lot within the college community. Its impacts are unpredictable and its outcomes are even more opaque. Who knew in February of this year that the hospitality industry would be gutted in 2 months? Marriott in Bethesda has had to lay off almost 700 workers from its headquarters. Who knew that Novavax would announce the creation of 400 new jobs overnight? Who knew that people in our county would line up for free food distributions in lines that snaked for miles? Had a girlfriend going across around Montgomery College campus in Rockville and called me to say, what's going on? Is there a protest? And I said, honey, all we're doing is giving away food. People need bread. Who knew that the federal government would be pouring millions of dollars in CARES funds into states, and that wouldn't be enough? Every day it seems that we're facing a new unexpected. But there's hope, and here's what gives me hope. I attend county meetings on reskilling and recovering in which shared solutions are the norm. Silos, they're gone. They're a thing of the past. Leaders are working collaboratively at a level that I haven't seen in years. We are literally understanding shared problems through new lenses. We're also thinking several steps ahead. We're putting the most vulnerable first in our planning, which ultimately serves everyone. And people are learning lessons that they can no longer turn away from. We see how unemployment in the county is impacting those without education or training especially hard. And we're actively planning to retrain folks being forced out of industries hit by the crisis. And we're strategizing about how to support local businesses that will need to alter their practices and hiring models. We're seeing the equity impacts of so many policy decisions. If you look at the lines of cars at our food distribution sites, you can see that people are hurting. Families are hurting. And Montgomery College hosts our mobile markets each week on our 3 campuses. We're regularly turning people away. 41% of our working students have lost a job due to COVID. Half of all COVID deaths in Maryland have been African American, who are only 30% of our population. The impacts of the virus are falling most heavily upon the most vulnerable: low-income folks, immigrants, people of color, and those with health challenges. This is a lesson to all of us. Opportunity gaps have consequences. They're not always evident in policymakers in real time, but they impact real lives, real people right now. There's a moral imperative to this crisis which demands response. We're seeing that on many levels with local and federal grants to those who've lost jobs, rental resources, freezes on utility layoffs. We're responding to economic crises with measures that serve people. But there's no panacea, y'all. It can feel at times like we're never serving all of the needs. The tension of this urgency can have two outcomes. It can either drive people apart or it can bring people together. Those that collaborate, I can tell you, will accomplish more than they might have done in times of less urgency. They cut through perceived barriers. They see solutions that aren't apparent before. They envision how systems thinking can lift us all. None of us have the answers alone, but together we can create solutions that are comprehensive and serve the many needs that we're facing. Difficult as it is right now, we must continue to face on the education to jobs pipeline. This has to be our focus. Investing in this today means that when commerce is able to ramp up again, we will be prepared with skilled workers. And those workers will have ECE options that are robust. The pipeline can't rest just because people like us are working from home. Not everyone has this luxury. Now, I'm one of the original members of MMF, and I know that moving Montgomery forward, that name says it all. This group was already out in the forefront of issues of the ECE long before the pandemic. Business leaders saw the value, educators understood the role, economists understood that it supported the pipeline of skilled workers. Now, you've already been hard at work leveraging time, talent, and resources that exist here. Let's make the public-private coordinating entity a reality. We need this in Montgomery County. Let's break down the silos, or as we say in the neighborhood where I grew up, let's get over ourselves. Let's make an opportunity exist where opportunity gaps are. Protect the workforce of today and create tomorrow's talent. I thank you for your commitment. I hope this has pieced together some of the puzzles, but most importantly, I hope that it has ignited you for what's going to be a powerful experience today. Thank you so much.
Dr. Pollard, you said you implied that you might inspire us, and you have done more than that. So thank you. We are now, because of you, ready to jump right into the first panel of the day. Ready, set, go, bringing the basics to Montgomery County. It's my pleasure to welcome our panelists. Joanne Hurt, Executive Director, the Wonders Early Learning and Extended Day, or Wonders Early Learning and Extended Day. Throughout her career, Joanne has worked to ensure that Wonders creates and sustains learning environments for children that are engaging, nurturing, and led by excellent teachers who are supported in their growth and professional development. She'll be joined by Jack McBride, Founder and Chief Executive Officer of Contech, Inc. In 2019, Jack was recognized as one of South Carolina's ambassadors for economic development. He is committed to community service and is a member of the Task Force for Economic Mobility in the South. Debbie Yar will also join the panel. She is a program manager at the Office of Children's Services, Department of Community Resources and Services in Howard County. For the last 27 and more years, Debbie has been a timeless advocate for services that benefit children, parents, and caregivers in Howard County. And last, but of course not least, Jennifer Arnaz will join us. She is Executive Director of Montgomery County Child Care Resource Center, Montgomery County Department of Health and Human Services. And she will facilitate the conversation. Jennifer has over 25 years of experience in the early care and education system. In her capacity in that job, she has supported those jobs. She's supported strong collaborations with state government, nonprofit agencies, various stakeholders, and community partners, helping many to advocate for child care. We have a terrific cross-section of people, and with Dr. Pollard's inspiration, we're ready to go. So I turn it to you, Jennifer.
Thank you, Andy. So good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Jennifer Arnice, and I'll be leading this conversation. Today's goal is to look at a few of the innovative strategies that advance all the amazing efforts that currently exist in Montgomery County. During this specific segment, we will be taking a deeper dive into an innovative model called the Basics. If you recall, on day one, we heard from Dr. Ferguson, who shared this model of community intervention. The Basics is founded in key principles that support children throughout their lives and only made possible by relying on partners and stakeholders investing in early childhood at the community level. I want to again thank my panelists, Joanne, Jack, and Debbie, for joining us today, who are going to be sharing their experiences about the Basics. So as a reminder to the panelists, we have 20 minutes allotted for this section, so I will ask that you keep your answers as specific as possible. I'm going to start with Joanne. Can you, right now we are currently dealing with a major world disruptor, COVID-19. Can you share why the Basics is appropriate for Montgomery County now?
Sure. Thanks. COVID-19, I think one of the fallouts of that, it has definitely brought to light the importance of caregiving and the essential role that early childhood education has in terms of preparing children for lifelong learning and for supporting the economy. And as the executive director of Wonders, I've really long recognized the value of this work. As a working mom, I've relied upon and trusted the care and education of the teachers who taught my young children when they were young to see themselves as learners and guided their social emotional growth that strengthened their sense of self. And as an advocate for equity in early learning, I really see this moment in time and all, just like what Dr. Pollard mentioned earlier, just all the different intersections that COVID has brought it to our attention. Now is really a great opportunity for the county to be thinking about the basics. The basics philosophy is making life the program. And what happens at home reinforces the early childhood learning, and it's perfectly suited for this moment in time when more and more people are actually staying home. So as we've been navigating this pandemic since March, and that as an adult feels like a really long time. But when you think about that in terms of the life of a young child, especially in terms of the rapid brain development that's happening between birth and age 3, these past 8 months are really significant. So as the pandemic continues, it's the moment right now in Montgomery County is great to be taking our steps as a community to support young children's growth and development every single day. We need to make every day count for children. So the basics principles of maximize love, manage stress, talk, sing, point, count, group, compare, explore, movement and play, and read and discuss stories. These can happen every day with everybody in our community taking a part. So it's super exciting that we are going to be able to pilot this in the county because as an early childhood educator, I see the basics as really uplifting the work of early learning educators. By engaging the entire community in the shared goal of growth and development for each child, Montgomery County will be investing in our future.
Thank you. Jack, can you tell us what role do business partnerships and public-private leadership support an effective implementation of the basics?
Sure. So I met Ron probably 5 years ago and was immediately impressed by the basics model because of its simplicity and for its ability to be understood by people at all levels, whether it be business leaders, community leaders, or the people that are disadvantaged and need to learn the basics in educating their children. So we at Contact decided that we would embrace the basics, and we are the primary funder of the basics here in Spartanburg. We've hired a wonderful woman, Caitlin Watts, who came out of the child care community and is doing a great job communicating to faith-based organizations, businesses, communities, child care centers, spreading the word of the basics to the entire community. From a business standpoint, the basics for us reflect an immediate need for our culture at Contech is one of promoting balance between work and home life. So we want our employees to understand the basics, and we talk about it at our town halls, and we have a town hall tomorrow that I'll be talking about it. With the holidays coming up and with the COVID crisis and everything, people will be spending a lot of time with their children. So we want them to use the basics as they relate to their kids. But we understand that if you use the basics properly, you're going to have a happier home life. And if you have a happier home life, you're going to have a happier work life. And that reflects back to our customers. From a long-term standpoint, obviously what you guys have already mentioned, we need a future workforce if our company is going to remain competitive and if our nation is going to remain competitive. And to that end, I've joined a group called Ready Nation, which is 3,000 business executives, 3,000 plus, that have signed a pledge that we want to support early childhood in this country because it is critical to our future competitiveness. So we believe in it, we fund it. I think lots of businesses understand the critical nature of those first 3 years and how important it is both for their employees and for our future as a country.
Great, thank you so much. How interesting. Debbie. Now, Debbie Year and I know each other through our shared experiences overseeing resource and referral centers. So she is my sister counterpart in Howard County. It's great to see you, Debbie. So I know that Howard County recently implemented the basics. Can you share your county's experience as a new basics implementation site?
Sure, it's great to be here. And congratulations to Montgomery County. We just started. We started July 2020, and we're a component of the Howard County Early Childhood Advisory Council. We had an opportunity to apply for some funding. So we used some of the funding to bring the basics to Howard County. We're currently in the outreach and awareness stage, and what we're trying to do is just to develop a local presence through marketing, local website presentations, and some of our lessons learned, and Ron has talked about this, is it's important to have somebody dedicated to this project. So many of us know that we try and do things on, and try and balance everything else, functions of our job, but I think it's important to have somebody dedicated. It's important to build awareness, and it's important to enlighten the community that this is something that supports something that they're a concept that they're already doing. We have many initiatives in Howard County, many programs have their own initiatives, and this supports it. For example, one of the principles, the Read and Discuss Stories, that supports some of the programs that the library is already doing. We have a program in Howard County called Talk With Me that promotes literacy and talking and communication with babies, and the Talk Sing Play supports that. So it's not a be all end all, but we do want to work with the community. It's important that we participate in partners meetings with the basics. They have a variety of different opportunities for us to gain knowledge from them. And it is important to, include money in your budget. Congratulations on the $100,000. That's wonderful. We have a much smaller budget, but it's important to make sure that you have the funds to be able to promote it properly. And it's also important that we've learned to build the partners. And sometimes it takes a little bit of time. We've been doing presentations to the Office of Early Intervention, to Head Start, to the library staff, just to build awareness.
Thank you. Let me just circle back to Joanne. Joanne, you had mentioned about the foundations of the building blocks, of the basics. Can you tell me how you see the basics as a tool for really building a better ECE landscape in this county?
So I think that educating the community, just like Debbie was talking about, is sort of raising that awareness about the importance and getting more members of the community involved. By using these 5 principles, it actually helps to support the work that's happening in the variety of different types of early childhood educational settings, in addition to really educating parents so that there can be a more engaged and robust partnership between early childhood educators and the parents and the families of the children that we're educating and caring for. So I think I really do see it as sort of elevating the work and also the really educating the entire community about decision making and how we're investing in children and families, because that investment of birth to 3 really does make a lifelong difference in terms of the life of a child, and that in turn is in terms of the life of a community, you know, the economics of the community and everything else.
So Jackson, in South Carolina, can you share a little bit of your work in terms of reaching the community? What types of innovative strategies have you used to be include the community in terms of awareness and usage?
So I think the point of having somebody dedicated to this effort is critical, and Caitlin has done that. One of the things we've done is I reached out to 5 different community leaders to create videos about the raising of their children as it pertains to the basics, and I had each one of them choose one of the basics. So one was a very successful businessman who's run 4 or 5 different companies. He and his wife, I forget what they discussed. We had another businessman who had also served 2 terms as mayor, who spoke about another one of the basics. We had an African-American superintendent of schools and his wife discuss another basic. We had an African-American woman who's a single mom and the clerk of court for Spartanburg County. She discussed another basic. And then the artistic ballet director of this ballet Spartanburg, who is a native of Colombia, South America, he discussed the 5th and final basic. So with those champions on our basics website, we feel like we have an opportunity to reach out to different aspects of the community to get everybody involved and understand that our community leaders see how important this effort is to educate kids 0 to 3. And that's where education really is more important than we ever thought. I wish I'd known that when I was raising our 4 kids, because I would have paid more attention, but I didn't, so.
Thank you. Debbie, you said that you had been doing presentations around making the community aware. What are some creative out-of-the-box partners that you are trying to connect to be a part of this initiative?
Well, I do agree with Jack that champions are important, and we've been slowly building our champions. And some of the out-of-the-box ways that we have been promoting is we develop stickers. They're round, large stickers. They talk about the basics very briefly. They have our local website. We have localized the information from the national website. And we also have a QR code where they can go right to the website and are to be able to sign up for the text messages. But one of the ways that we have built our partners and marketed this program is with these stickers, we go to the food bank, which is basically our diaper bank in Howard County, and we put the stickers on every single package, as many as we can, of the diapers. So in trying to reach that population and do some awareness, every time they get a package of diapers, they would get a sticker that talks about the basics, and also educating the staff of the food bank. We also have some flyers available too. We also are in the process of partnering with the library, and right now they have their grab and go bags, and they're brown paper bags, and we had the idea of to partner to ask them if they would be willing to put those stickers on the library bags for board books or any books that go to young children. So this has just started, and hopefully it will build some momentum. And we're just in the process of really trying to get the word out and explain simply what basics is. And we have been our way of promoting it is to promote the text messages, and that serves also as a tracking device or a tracking element for us to see how many people are signed up and whether they're using it and benefiting from it.
Thank you. I'm confident that you'll lift it off the ground successfully. So let's see, are there any questions from viewers?
Hi, Jen. We do have a couple of questions that have come in. One is, what are some particular challenges that we might consider with starting the basics during this particular time with the pandemic? So I know that's kind of a big question, but that's open for any of the panelists.
Would anyone like to take a jump at that?
I'll jump into it. I think that this is an ideal time to promote it because this is a virtual program. It has resources for families, quick, easy, tangible things that they can do with their children to interact at a time when they are at home. So I think of many programs that are out there, this actually is one that would work, that does work well during a pandemic.
Okay, thank you. Jack or Joanne?
Yep. One thing we did is we have a very close relationship with Ballet Spartanburg. We asked Carlos, the director there, he couldn't do the Nutcracker this year, which is a big tradition in our city because of COVID. So we asked him to work with his ballet troupe and create videos around each of the basics using his ballet troupe and young children. So that has been done and produced and is now on the site. So we're trying to promote that in the community because people are going to be home with their children during COVID. There's some fun songs that they've used, Old MacDonald and I'm a Little Teapot, things like that. And they've also done dances around Alice in Wonderland and Peter and the Wolf. So we're trying to make things fun and energetic for people at home and create some special videos for the holidays and while people are all together at home.
I'm just going to put this out in Spanish real quick, so give me 1 second. Para las personas que hablan español, si tienen una pregunta, por favor, pueden submitirlo por el question and answer. Okay.
And Jen, I was just going to say that the first principle of the basics, which is, maximize love and manage stress. Like I can't think of a better time than right now that to really, for all of us to be focused on that. And children do react to our stress levels. And so for parents to be educated around that just simple mantra almost, that I think will have a huge impact in this particular moment in time.
So very true, so very true. Any other questions being submitted?
Got one more, and it's particularly to hear from Jack. It sounds like you've got some really creative partnerships in South Carolina. Can you speak a little bit about what strategies you use to bring people on board and to really make the implementation a cross-sector effort?
Well, I have to say Ron Ferguson's videos that I've sent out to people in our community got them believing in the basics because it is so simple a program, and the community we're especially trying to reach are the at-risk community, and they don't have to buy anything. They don't have to read a bunch of books. They can look at some videos, look at the passion that Ron feels for the basics, and they can understand that this is really just about engaging with their children to activate their brain. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's really just one-on-one communication with your child or children. And those interactions is so much better than having them look at the TV or whatever, because there are so many signals being sent in a two-way communication between a parent and a child that it is activating synapses in the brain. And the way I like to explain it to our employees, and I think they get this, is it's like if you're going to buy a phone or a computer, you look at two things. You look at the memory and the processing speed. Well, the brain is born with amazing memory capacity, and we all have that. But processing speed really comes through engaging the brain. And when a child is engaging with their parent, they're having interactions, they're seeing facial features, they're listening to the words, they're reacting themselves and seeing how their reaction is impacting their parents. So they're processing all this stuff in the back of their brain while they're interacting with their parents. So that gets them ready to be in an education setting where they're going to have that same relationship with the teacher. So, you know, Ron has done such a great job of making a program that is easy for anybody to understand and utilize in their family setting.
Thank you so much. So as we've heard, a whole community approach to the basic requires commitment and support. In today's world, which has been completely disrupted by COVID, now more than ever, our children and families need resources for social emotional wellness and for learning. The basics allow and in fact supports roles for all sectors, as well as a range of early childhood practitioners across our county to join in this effort. Again, I want to thank our panelists for participating in this and sharing their experiences and insight with the basics. To continue this conversation or to learn more, I invite you to visit the events landing page, which I believe you all have. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over back to Andy. Oh, I think you're muted.
Thanks. Sorry. That was a really terrific session. It was more than okay. I think what was exciting is for those of us who didn't know much about basics, you now know something. And we got a nice overview. And I love the emphasis on awareness, that if more people knew about the basics and knew how to get involved in it, we'd really change a lot of lives. So thank you to the panel. Thanks for the questions, and thanks for your involvement all the way through. So I'm glad to introduce today's Early Care and Education Interlude. The Interlude is intended to offer us all an opportunity to learn about early care and education in an interactive way, while also demonstrating the value of fundamental early care and education principles throughout the lives of young learners. This will be a different kind of session that you will be really glad to have participated in. Please join me in welcoming Helma Irving, Assistant Division Director, Children, Youth, and Families at Shepherd Pratt, who will lead us in an activity on the topic of resilience. Helma trains early childhood professionals to intentionally teach social and emotional strategies that help children be successful in a group setting. And now we are her students. So go ahead, Helma.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you so much for the introduction. Yes, I was asked today to provide a resiliency-themed activity that explains the importance of social and emotional development from birth to age 5, and to explain how important these skills are critical throughout a child's development and into adult life. Farah then said, you'll have about 5 minutes to present. So my resiliency skills kicked in and I laughed out loud, laughing, a good resiliency technique to help one cope. Then she gave me 10 minutes. So here we go. If you can and choose to participate in this activity, I ask you to put up your hand and show me 5 fingers. This represents your brain. I decided to go low tech. Can I get a high five? Seriously though, Dr. Dan Siegel teaches kids about the brain using the hand model. I placed the link to his YouTube video on the landing page. I will loosely use his hand model to demonstrate techniques for resiliency activities this afternoon. Dr. Siegel explains your thumb represents your emotions or your amygdala, and your fingers are your thinking part of the brain or your frontal cortex. The thinking part of your brain helps you regulate your emotion when you flip your lid. In other words, we flip our lids when we experience trauma, get stressed out, scared, angry, worried. And when you flip your lid, you can't think about how to emote, right? Your emotional piece. You can't think about the next steps to take about the feelings that you're having. Feelings are feelings, and you can't tell someone how to feel, but you can teach how to label and respond to those feelings. What does this have to do with resiliency? To answer that, we need to know what resiliency is. Resiliency is one's ability to adapt to change and one's ability to maintain good brain functioning under adverse and stressful situations. Everyone can learn resilience at any time. So here are 4 basic concepts we teach in our early childhood and social emotional classes to build resilience in our young children. First, create trusting, healthy relationships. We need to invest in supporting strong, healthy relationships between caregivers and children. This means well-educated and consistent caregivers. Children need someone that they can trust consistently, caregivers who respond and teach in an appropriate, nurturing way. Caregivers who know when the infant cries, you respond by holding them. When a toddler bites, that is age appropriate, and they teach instead of punish. When a preschooler grabs a toy, that they are learning to ask for its turn still, and a caregiver teaches these skills, and again, not punish. A caregiver who allows kids to explore at arm's length, but is there when they turn around for reassurance. We need to invest in classes for caregivers so they can learn what is developmentally appropriate. And once you have a trusted caregiver, that person can then teach how to label emotions. So the second thing, label emotions. We need to invest in training our caregivers to teach children emotional literacy. This is the capacity of a child to identify, understand, and express emotions in a healthy way. They need to recognize what feelings feel like in their body. My heart is beating fast, my face feels hot, my tummy has butterflies in them, and then be able to label the feelings and express it again in a healthy way. That means to be able to say, I'm mad, I'm scared, I'm worried. They feel something, and then they can express it appropriately. We have to invest in intentionally teaching kids how to recognize and express how they feel. This is an essential step towards self-regulation. Number 3. Self-regulation. This is the core of resilience. We have to invest in teaching kids how to self-regulate. This is learning how to keep your emotions in check before you flip your lid, and how to bring your lid back down. Again, resiliency is one's ability to adapt to change and one's ability to maintain good brain functioning under adverse and stressful situations. So let me tell you a story about a 3-year-old who would flip his lid anytime things didn't go his way. In those instances, we taught him a resiliency strategy, how to blow out the candles on his fingers when he felt his brain flipping. So when his face got hot, when his heart was beating fast, we taught him to breathe. Take a deep breath through your nose and then blow out the candles. You can join me if you wish, right? So he took another deep breath. This blowing of the candles is deep breathing, which caused his blood to circulate and back to his frontal lobe, to his thinking part of his brain, and helped him regulate his emotion. He then was able to express with words how he felt. He needed help at first, but he does it now on his own. This is an example of teaching kids a resiliency skill. Think about what self-regulation or resiliency techniques you use to bring your lid down. And how would you teach this to young children? Here are some examples. Self-talk out loud in front of kids to share that you recognize that your lid has been flipped. I can't think straight. I need a break. I'm going to walk away. Or maybe, I can't think straight. I may need to take some deep breaths to be able to focus again. Others may choose to cry or laugh just to help bring their lid down. We also need to practice resiliency skills and techniques to help our brain function through ongoing stressors, not just when we flip our lid, but to keep our lids from flipping. So how do you self-regulate or keep your lid down on a daily basis? Well, for example, with babies, we rock them gently, we hold them, we do infant massage to build body awareness. This helps them eventually be aware of their bodies to help them know how they feel. For older children, we need to teach and model healthy behavior by establishing consistent daily routines. Include in the daily routine self-care. For example, taking a 10-minute walk, or doing a workout, or a 5-minute meditation. Maybe read 3 pages of a book. Try yoga. Sleep at least 8 hours a day. Listen to music, talk to a friend, do something fun that makes you laugh and smile. These are lifelong healthy habits we need to teach. These last several months have really tested our resiliency skills, and many of us have learned new resiliency techniques, which brings us to point 4, continued learning and intentional teaching. We need to invest in caregivers to continually learn, practice, teach, and model social skills to build resilience. This will rewire our brains to be resilient. The more you learn, practice, teach, and model over and over again work resiliency skill, the synapses in your brain will be stronger, and these practices will automatically kick in. And it becomes a habit, right? To walk, work out, do yoga, read a book, and have fun every day. Most adults tell kids to calm down when they're upset, or they say, "You're okay." But has anyone tried to teach or tell you to do something when you're really upset and your lid is up? It usually doesn't go very well. When you have your lid flipped, you're not ready to receive the information. Your thinking brain needs to be down to receive the lesson. In the classes we teach caregivers, we teach them to read social stories, sing songs, read books about self-regulation, and then teach them to model how to recognize your feelings and then how to express them. So remember the 3-year-old I mentioned earlier who learned how to blow the candles out when he flipped his lid. Well, we took the time to teach him about this when he was calm and not having an issue. We coached him in the moment. However, we taught him when his lid was down. Throughout our lifetime, we will face new challenges. This is where our resiliency skills bring us back to neutral. We want to teach in early childhood years so it is embedded from the start. The classes my team and I teach are based on information from the Center for Social and Emotional Foundations of Early Learning, the pyramid model. The website can be found on the landing page. This website has wonderful resources for teachers and families. So in conclusion, resilience in 10 minutes. Put your hand up to represent your brain, right? Your thumb are your emotions. And we need to remember the definition of resilience: one's ability to adapt to change and one's ability to maintain good brain functioning under adverse and stressful situations by creating trusting relationships with educated caregivers, being able to label your emotions, knowing how you feel, learning how to self-regulate with the consistent, healthy daily routines, and then promising yourself to learn more all the time, resiliency practices. This way you can be resilient and keep your lid from flipping when you feel it coming on. If you want to learn more, go to the landing page and you can contact me, Helma Irving, through the Shepherd Pratt website or email me directly. Take care and all the best to you and yours as you practice and build your resiliency skills. Thank you for having me here today. Back to you, Andy.
Helma, you're getting a lot of fans on chat. That was like the best 10-minute lesson. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for what you taught us. And just look on chat if you don't believe what I'm saying. We're going to move on. Please join me in welcoming the panelists for our next session, moving us from here to there, the Early Care and Education Public-Private Coordinating Entity panel presentation. Anise Cody, Anise Cody is one of the 4 people who's going to be in the panel. She's the president of Holy Cross Health Network, Holy Cross Health's community-based operating division. Anise also serves as the board chair for Nexus Montgomery Regional Partnership, a partnership among the 6 Montgomery County, Maryland hospitals focused on improving health in our community in ways that no single hospital could accomplish on its own. Another panelist will be Shirley Brandman. She currently works as an education advocate in Montgomery County. She's the former president of the county school board and is currently the chair of the board of advisors at the universities at Shady Grove. Anne Marie Valdez is the president of First Steps Kent, an independent nonprofit leading a community-wide effort to build a comprehensive early childhood system in Kent County, Michigan. Anne Marie brings more than 20 years of experience as an advocate for children and families. She was awarded one of Grand Rapids' most influential women in 2020 by the Grand Rapids Business Journal. Congratulations for that, Anne Marie. Amy Turner-Tolley is a strategic communications consultant, and she will facilitate the conversation. Amy is a collaborative systems thinker and strategic communications professional with deep knowledge of issues and policy related to vulnerable children and families. She's the former communications director of First Steps Kent and is currently assisting MMF with its entity project, which is the subject of our next panel. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy and send you on your way.
Great, thanks, Andy. So we are here where we know high quality, accessible, affordable early care and education is critically important to the workforce of today and tomorrow. The question we're looking at is, how does Montgomery County get to a coordinated ECE system that is aligned, equitable, accountable, and can really move the needle? That question is at the core of the work that MMF has been doing with the ECE Coordinating Entity Project. As many of you know, the Montgomery County Council approved a special appropriation to support that work. MMF will make recommendations for an independent public-private ECE coordinating entity by the end of this calendar year, so coming up very quickly. We followed a somewhat similar process in Kent County, which is home to Grand Rapids, that's our biggest city, more than a decade ago, and decided we needed a strong independent coordinating entity to create an early childhood system where we previously had a hodgepodge of programs acting largely on their own. There was no systemic approach prior to this work. That led to First Steps Kent, which was one of the models that MMF identified as an entity that has many of the same characteristics that your community recognizes as being important to the success of this work. We bring together a wide range of public and private sector stakeholders in our community who are committed to our vision that every young child will enter kindergarten healthy and ready to learn. So in a bit, we're going to hear more about First Steps Kent. We're also going to hear about Nexus Montgomery, which is a local example of a governance structure that works in the health and hospital systems, but could provide a really good example to MMF. And we're going to start with Shirley Brandman, who's going to give us an understanding of how MMF and the community have gotten to the point where we are now, and a little bit of a look at what's ahead. Hi, Shirley.
Hi, Amy. Thank you so much. Greetings, everyone. So in January of 2018, MMF issued a call to action for early care and education. It followed after a year of extensive research and extensive community outreach, building on work that you've already heard about coming out of the workforce development sector. And the call to action really drove home the point that we've heard reiterated today so powerfully, that building a stronger ECE system is an economic imperative. The call to action really made clear that to attain and attract the talent of our workforce today, who need access to high quality, affordable ECE, and to ready our successful workforce of tomorrow, we need high quality, affordable ECE to be able to close opportunity gaps and have all children ready for kindergarten. So MMF then undertook efforts to learn and get smarter. And as Amy said, look at models for the best ways to design a coordinated and comprehensive system that would meet our needs here in Montgomery County. One of the first steps was we engaged with the Children's Funding Project and commissioned them to help us with a fiscal map, looking at all the sources of funding that were coming into ECE in the county. I'm going to ask Farah to help me put up a slide to show you that what they found when they looked was a really complicated tapestry of funding sources, over 20 different sources, and that those resulted in a complicated tapestry of programs and services that were not fully meeting our needs, where parents were still continuing to bear most of the costs. Thank you, Farah. So what the fiscal map really reinforced was what we had learned and heard from a variety of stakeholders already, that our county needed a true system. And further, that for a system to function effectively, it needs a governance body. It needs to be led by an entity that can coordinate, can align disparate funding sources, can ensure that we're getting the most value from each ECE dollar spent, can avoid duplication of efforts, can identify gaps, and can provide for transparent governance and accountability. But we also learned from studying models, from research, from talking to our community members, that a coordinating entity has to represent and reflect the full landscape of those who provide, use, and benefit from ECE services. And that means public, but also private, that it has to include both the public and private sector, parents, philanthropy, providers, and other business leaders. MMF has continued to facilitate community conversations and engagement, to look at the models you'll hear about shortly, to really help define what that public-private entity can look like. And as Amy mentioned, in 2020, MMF submitted a proposal that was funded by our county council, selecting MMF because of its work as a cross-sector conveyor, because of its expertise to help develop a blueprint for an independent public-private entity. And I think when you hear more from my panelists, you'll know why we're moving in that direction.
Thanks, Shirley. That was really helpful to set the stage. Let's turn now to Anise, who's going to talk to us a bit about Nexus Montgomery, which is local for all of you who are there watching from Montgomery County, an example of a governance structure that is also providing us some good guidance as we look at the ECE coordinating entity. Anise?
Thank you. So Nexus Montgomery was formed in 2016 as a collaboration among the 6 hospitals in Montgomery County. And so clearly it's not in the ECE space, but I think it does have some informative characteristics that may be helpful. You can see on the screen here our mission statement on the left. We are focused on improving health, reducing hospital utilization, and managing total cost of care. But most importantly, doing so in a way that no single hospital could achieve on its own. So as we came together, we needed to think about what sort of structure, what sort of entity do we want to have to do this type of work. What we decided when we were forming it, the 6 hospitals coming together, that we were going to form a joint venture LLC that had a board made up of representatives from each of the 6 hospitals. And that governing board has a fiduciary responsibility to make decisions about how to use the funds that are allocated to the joint venture. Second, in terms of management, what we decided is rather than hiring a staff, we would contract with a management entity, which we're using the Primary Care Coalition. And what they do is help to support the governance, provide management support to the governance. They manage contracts with community partners that are implementing the initiatives that we are taking up. And they also manage data and analytics. So we can stay on top of what we're doing. And then finally, the last thing that was important in thinking about as we were coming together is what our operating agreement would look like and some key decisions that we had to face. Whether we should establish a legal entity, what should be the board size and the composition of that board, what sort of committee structures do we need, how should we think about voting rights, and what are our decision-making rules? So for example, what decisions need to be unanimous? We actually tended toward more decisions being unanimous because we were a new entity coming together. What needed is a supermajority and what needed just a simple majority. And finally, thinking about stakeholder engagement. These are all the sorts of issues that the ECE coordinating entity needs to be considering as well.
Great, thank you very much, Anise. That's helpful context as we're looking at a governance structure for an ECE entity in Montgomery County. And now we will turn to my good friend, Anne-Marie Valdez, who has done a phenomenal job of leading First Steps Kent the last few years. And Anne-Marie has a great deal of experience in bringing people together collaboratively to make progress where individually we were not able to do that. So Anne-Marie, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work of First Steps Kent?
Yes, thank you, Amy. And it's wonderful to be here this afternoon with all of you. I think Amy already mentioned a little bit about Kent County. We have the second largest city in Michigan after Detroit, with the population just over 650,000. The thing that helped First Steps, and why I really applaud what you're doing here in Montgomery County, is that we looked at communities across the country to see what was happening there, what were good, effective models. And so many people were willing to share their stories and their models and help us along. But it's always important when you bring it back to your own community that you tweak it for your community so that it works. You guys are doing amazing things here, and it's wonderful to see. So what I would mention is that with that public-private cooperation and being an intermediary, it's so important to have that neutrality, that you're not deep in competing for funding, that program providers who are the experts and know what they're doing, but you're not really competing with them, but you become a trusted partner so that you can link arms with them and really change the world for young children. a couple things come to mind for me as I look at that public-private partnership, is that our county board had already established Child and Family Coordinating Council that was really looking at the landscape, the entire landscape. When you think about our community, that you're looking at lifelong pathways and quality of life from prenatal all the way to college, career, and senior living, you want to make sure that each of those age groups along the continuum have the supports that are needed for ultimate success in life and reaching potential. So when I say that, I know that our governmental entity had already set a precedent that they had originally funded early childhood. So that meant that we could create more and more partnerships. And the slide that's showing right now, I think, is effective. And I love that it carries on the theme of the hand that we just learned about with the social emotional, that Kent County at a glance, when we look at our youngest population, and it's just under 45,000 children under age 5, that such a high number of those children are economically disadvantaged. So more than 20,000 of those children are, facing those type of economic challenges with their families. That means that the services that we're talking about here are needed more than ever. And it's important to not only have funding for them, but have the partnerships that can make those services effective, but that they're coordinated, that there aren't duplications, and that you have some type of entity that's looking at that landscape to make sure that you're filling in the gaps for those families and those children. I think about the partnerships that are so important, and I think about business, the business sector, our Chamber of Commerce. We have an organization called Talent 2025, and I think one of the previous speakers talked about relationships and partnerships with the business sector. Now, the entity here in Kent County has Talent 2025 that represents over 120 CEOs in our region. And that's where you can be effective when you think about childcare and supports and policy changes. Then I think about our own senior organization that is an intermediary. And those seniors have helped and nurtured and mentored us as an organization. They have been doing this type of work for years. And they also have that significant relationship as representing grandparents who oftentimes are the care providers for their children and grandchildren. So these are important partnerships. And as we develop that trusted partnership with government, it makes it so much more important. And I also think about the schools and making sure that there's open dialogue between an intermediary organization such as mine, First Steps, with superintendents, across the region, so that we know what the needs are and we know where there is funding and that it's dedicated for programs such as Early On, and that you can blend and braid and weave those pieces all together as long as there's communication, trusted relationships, and the opportunity to meet and listen to the folks that are in this work deeply. I think the other thing that came to mind as I listened today is one of the taglines that we used that was so effective when we met any type of resistance was that we are trying to support parents, not replace them. And that is so important because parents do look for support, but they want to be their children's first teacher and they want to be involved in their children's life and education. So I think that is an important message to take away from this. And I'll stop there. Thank you so much. And good luck to you in your journey and all the incredible work you're doing here.
And thanks, Anne Marie. And I just saw a question in the chat about the demographics of Kent County, and I can help answer that question somewhat. We are a little bit smaller than Montgomery County. Kent County is about 650,000 people, and I think Montgomery County is closer to 1 million. As Anne Marie said, our population of children younger than kindergarten age is about 45,000. And close to half of that population is from an economically disadvantaged household, meaning 200% of the federal poverty level or below. Our racial demographics and ethnic demographics, we are between 50 and 60%, a little bit more actually than 60% white, 15 to 20% Black, and 15 to 20% Latinx is a pretty good breakdown. So we are a little bit less racially and ethnically diverse than Montgomery County. And we have a large urban center, a number of suburbs, very diverse suburbs, and then a large rural area. So that's just a little bit more about what Kent County looks like in terms of, in comparison to Montgomery County. Let's go back to Anise for a minute. Anise, can you tell us a little bit, just briefly, quickly, I know we're running low on time, so we'll try to keep these responses short, but tell us some of the lessons that you have learned from Nexus Montgomery. This is back to Anise, that could be helpful for us as we're looking at the ECE coordinating entity.
Sure, I'd be happy to. The first is that being able to show results is really important. That's what's expected of this sort of organization. And to do that, it means deciding early what you're going to measure, how you're going to measure it, and ensuring that you have both the data and the analytic capacity to do so. It can be challenging, but doing that work early on is really, really critical. Second, one of the things that we found is that rather than trying to build from scratch and control everything, taking advantage of existing community resources is both expedient and it gives some advantages of economies of scale for new initiatives. So for example, when we worked with the Primary Care Coalition as our management entity, we were able to stand up our work more quickly and perhaps even punch a little higher above a little bit above our weight class by having the backup of a larger organization rather than having an independent organization with just a handful of staff. The same is true for our programs. When we work with Cornerstone Montgomery and Shepherd Pratt, which are existing behavioral health providers in the community, having them operate our behavioral health programs that we funded allowed us to tap into their expertise for a faster startup and more stability than we could have done on our own. And we have extended that model to all of our programs, that we work with existing community partners in order to implement them. And then the final point I'd make is that clarity of mission is absolutely imperative. You're bringing together representatives from different organizations, different perspectives, each with its own priorities. It's really important to have a clear North Star and know what you're trying to do as you're designing your initiatives and setting budgets and moving forward.
Okay, great. Thank you, Anise. And a question has come in for Anne Marie, asking to point to one of the successes that we have had, and there have been many in Kent County because of this coordinating entity. Some of the things that we have been able to accomplish in our community, where we likely would not have been able to without that. So Anne Marie, do you want to talk about some of the successes that we've had? A big one, obviously, was the millage that we did, where we were able to bring in significant resources to supplant some of the funding that was already supporting early childhood.
Sure, thanks, Amy. I think after some lessons learned, which was an intermediary should not be running programs. So if at all possible, even if it's a demonstration program to show something evidence-based or best practices, it's so good to move that over to a home that you're not competing with. So I would say, you know, some great successes after building the trusted partnership with government was able to put on the ballot this millage increase to make sure that there was dedicated funding in our county for specifically for early childhood. So that was a big win back in 2018. And we, our organization was asked by the county to be the administrators and fiduciary of those funds and allocate it out. So when we talk about successes and that theme of elevating parent voice and making sure you have parent involvement, we on that committee of allocations, which is over $6 million a year, we have 4 parents on that 9-member committee. And those parents are dedicated and they're thorough and they have experience with the programs that we're funding. So they know firsthand where these funds are going and they know how to ask the right questions. I think another piece that has been a success from that relationship with the county is that when COVID hit and we saw our childcare providers barely hanging on, barely being able to keep their doors open, the county looked to First Steps as the expert on childcare that we had developed over the last couple of years, strong relationships with the childcare providers. So then when those CARES Act dollars came in, they looked to First Steps and said, here, we're going to allocate $2 million. We're going to trust you because you're already doing this work to get this out into the community. And we worked hand in hand with the county, and they consider us now a trusted partner.
Great, thanks, Anne Marie. And a question came in that we use slightly different language in Michigan. A millage is very similar to a tax levy, is what it's called in many other states, but in Michigan we call it a millage. And it was a property tax increase that the county board decided to put on the ballot at the urging of First Steps Kent and our early childhood community. And voters approved it overwhelmingly in November 2018. So all taxpayers in Kent County are paying a property tax increase, and that money is solely dedicated to early childhood services and programs. And we have just a couple of minutes left for this panel. So we're going to go to Shirley for one more question. And Shirley, I'd like to have you talk a little bit about something that Anne Marie touched on in our work in Kent County, and that is the continuum. That we're focusing heavily here on the earliest years of a child's life, but we know that that this is just part of the journey to successful adults and to folks who will go into a very skilled workforce. So talk to us a little bit about the conversations that you've been having in Montgomery County about the importance of tying this into the continuum of services for families and children.
Thanks, Amy. Well, I think even today and in the previous symposiums, all the speakers have spoken so compellingly about when the investment needs to start, right? We are investing in our youngest learners by having a high quality ECE system, because we know that that investment is critical and will pay dividends. It is the readiness from having high quality ECE that allows students to be ready when they start kindergarten. It is the ability to be successful in school that opens up opportunities for them. And at the same time that we are investing in their trajectory in the very short term and what's in front of us, it also means that their families are then free to be productive and engaged citizens in our community. You know, you're speaking about the pandemic, Anne Marie, and how already being a trusted entity, your county came to you. The urgency for moving forward on this, the critical need for this blueprint that MMF is working on for our council is because we've seen the ECE industry in crisis, and we've seen what happens to parents when they don't have access to the kind of care they need to be able to be productively engaged in the workforce. So it is a full continuum. We are really looking at critical talent issues today, and we heard so compellingly from the voice of business about why that matters right now. And we also know, and the research is plentiful, that the return on investment of investing early in child development is clearly a critical investment in the future of our county, not to mention, as Dr. Pollard said, a moral imperative and also a racial equity imperative.
I think that's a great way to end things, Shirley. Thank you very much. And we know there are lots of opportunities ahead for Montgomery County as this work continues. If you would like to learn more about the ECE coordinating entity that MMF is doing, please head to the MMF website. There's a landing page there that includes additional information, and look at that, Farrah's got it right there. It includes additional information right there that provides you with much more to learn about the work of the work leading to the coordinating entity and opportunities for you to provide feedback. So thank you very much. And thanks to Shirley, Anise, and Anne Marie. That was fantastic.
Thank you, Amy. I want to say two things. One is we're just really lucky to have the wisdom and experience of Kent County and you know, what's happening in Michigan that can inform what can happen in Montgomery County. So we're super grateful for you lending your knowledge and wisdom. And the other, and I can't help but say it, is, of course, it takes a millage. So I leave you with that thought. anyhow, as we think about moving forward, we know that we cannot do it without the voices, experience, and active participation and leadership of parents and providers. Let's hear from a few of the parent and provider leaders among us in this next video, generously developed for MMF Symposium by our partners at Comcast. While these are just a few of their voices, we hope they will inspire us all to continue to work collaboratively to advance some of the opportunities we've learned about today. So the video will now come on.
As a single parent and business owner, one of the problems I faced when my daughter was born was finding quality and affordable child care. I didn't just want a babysitter, I wanted a quality child care program that would help my daughter thrive. Initially, I became involved with the Head Start program because I needed to understand what the program offered. However, I quickly realized my passion was not only early care and education, but also affordable housing in Montgomery County as well. I have since been able to serve on the executive board of the Community Action Agency, and I have been able to advocate for both of these issues. Going forward, I would like to see increased funding for early care and education, and I want to help educate parents to advocate for this issue as well. In doing so, we can guarantee that our parents will have access to quality, affordable childcare, and we can secure funding for programming that will address this issue as well.
It gives the kids an early start with the education, and especially with Nicholas, he got the chance to actually experience that. In my three children, because I don't know if it's because he got the chance to actually did it, nobody else has done it. He seems more advanced at his age than they were at their age.
Mi hijo Lucas y yo pertenecemos al programa de Early Head Start. A él me le ha enseñado en lenguaje y en socialización, y a mí como madre latina me ha enseñado cómo ayudarle en su desarrollo.
The early child care education community has for many years operated on razor-thin profit margins. With the COVID-19 pandemic exacerbating this issue, many providers are struggling to stay in business. It is clear that there's a disproportionate impact on women of color, family child care providers, and providers who are parents themselves, having to weigh reopening versus the health and safety of their families while virtually schooling their children. We need to value child care providers as the backbone of our children's future and realize that this issue impacts the economic future of our county. In order to achieve these outcomes, we need to educate our community through a public awareness campaign that features high-quality early child care and education. And we need to facilitate strategic financing to strengthen the ECE workforce and infrastructure.
So thank you to Comcast for that really terrific video. It got me thinking that we started the afternoon with inspiration from Dr. Pollard, and we're ending with inspiration from that video. I sort of like the arc of it and the energy. And I love the call to action for parents, ECE providers, and advocates. We invite you to continue the conversation, view the video again, and learn more on the event landing page. You'll also find there the pledge card to indicate your commitment to supporting the work of bringing the basics to Montgomery County and advancing efforts to create a public-private coordinating entity. Finally, please plan to stay on with us in this Zoom room immediately following today's webinar to network with panelists, catch up with fellow participants, and have more inspiration. It's now my pleasure, my real pleasure, to reintroduce MMF co-chair Kathy Stevens, who will offer closing remarks for the 3-day symposium. And Kathy, you have the final word.
Well, aren't I the lucky one today? Thank you, Andy. And those of you who know me know I love closing a meeting on time, but I want to pull together a few important threads, so don't sign off yet. Thank you to everyone who participated today. Thank you to Tiffany Jones from the Community Action Board, letting us know this great news about the approval of the $100,000 to bring the basics to Montgomery County as a starting pilot program. We're certainly grateful to everyone who partnered and continues to partner in this work, and the cross-sector leadership that we have. I always say if this was a simple problem to tackle, it would have been done already. And it's clear through the work that we've done and what we've seen over the past 3 days of the symposium is that really this is a challenge that needs everyone at the table, whether it's a business person, a parent, an early care provider, a philanthropist, anyone and everyone is at the table, because this is our shared community success when we talk about early care and education. The event wouldn't be possible either without our sponsors. We just had a slide pop up from them. Again, just going really quickly, the HHS department, Asbury, Perconte, Comcast, the Greater Washington Community Foundation, Bob and Linda Young and Taub, the Economic Development Corporation here in Montgomery County, Healthcare Initiative Foundation, Montgomery College, the Early Care and Education Funders Collaborative, Kaiser Permanente, MCPS, our public school system, Community Action Partnership, Universities at Shady Grove, and UBS. I was told I should get all of them in, and I did that. Thank you to everyone. This was a symposium which had the theme about unlocking resources and finding pathways forward. And I think we really have talked about a lot. The focus here is our young people from birth to age 5. And certainly the COVID moment that we're in has just laid bare the equity challenges, the class issues, the social justice issues, and the economic issues that really touch every sector and show that early care and education belongs to all of us. And it's going to make the world go round. And I certainly harken back to what Dr. Pollard said in her opening remarks about this being an education jobs to pipeline, just a full look on everything we need in our community. The video, the Comcast video, again, thank you to Comcast, really shows that moving forward requires us to center our voices of our parents, ECE providers, and remain focused on building equitable, accessible, and a just ECE system for everyone, for all children ages 0 to 5, because that affects all of our futures. I have learned a lot, and I think that not only have we learned about the system, what it takes to stand up a system like this, the theory behind early care and education, certainly our little breaks have been, our interludes have been instructive, important for all of us to remember to take that time to reflect and re-energize, particularly now. So I just think that this symposium, looking at the business community involvement, looking at what early care and education providers are doing, looking at what the Head Start areas are doing, all of this comes together. And I guess we have a pledge that Andy introduced at the start of the program, leave us today with an increased understanding of a few of the specific MMF areas that we're working on to affect system change. And we have exciting efforts underway to bring the basics to the county and create the ECE public-private coordinating entity. If you want to contribute, if you want to get involved, please do so. There's the pledge card that's on the screen, and I think the link has been shared to that. Do fill that out, put your pen to paper and make a commitment for yourself, and do spread the word. Is there someone that you're out walking with now, just in a distance way, a neighbor that you haven't talked with by phone in a while, or an email that you want to send, or a parent that you know could use some information like this? Do spread the word and help us out by continuing to remain engaged with us and supporting this work. There is one final ask, and that is that you look out for our brief evaluation that we'll send in our post-symposium email. Any feedback is helpful. We appreciate your taking just a few minutes to do that. And I hope I'm right on time. I'm looking at the time, 2:30. Look at that. There's so much more to say, but I respect everyone's time. And we know we want to keep the conversation going here. And we'll be joined by certainly Dr. Ferguson from the Basics, Tiffany Jones, Community Action Board, Jack McBride, who you heard from South Carolina, and many others. So, take your camera off, walk if you need to get another drink of water for 2 seconds, come back. The conversation will be going, and just stay in this Zoom room. No need to do anything else. So I want to thank everyone for your time, from attendees on up to coordinators, certainly the staff and consultants with Montgomery Moving Forward and Nonprofit Montgomery. Couldn't do this without you. So with that, I will have the final word. Stay safe, and thank you all. Take care.